Deep inside a crooked forest, where sunlight rarely touched the ground, there lay a forgotten settlement that people only whispered about. It was called by one name, the Cursed Village. Travelers avoided the path that led toward it. They said the ground there drank blood, and the wind carried screams if you listened at night. The village had not always been cursed. Once it was alive with children's laughter and the smell of bread baking in stone ovens. Families worked the land and thrived. But something ancient stirred beneath the soil, something hungry. The first sign came with a disappearance. A farmer's little girl went missing while playing near the well. No one found her, not even a scrap of cloth. Weeks later, a boy vanished after chasing his dog toward the woods. Then another child, then another. Panic took root. Mothers clutched their children. Fathers kept watch through sleepless nights, but the disappearances continued. The air in the village changed. Doors creaked though there was no wind. At dusk, strange giggles floated in the empty fields. On moonless nights, people swore they saw pale faces staring from the treetops. One stormy evening, the villagers gathered at the well, torches blazing. They swore the well was cursed, a mouth that swallowed their young. Ignoring the warnings of the elder, they hurled their flames down into its black throat. The torches hissed against unseen water. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then the well screamed back. It wasn't the voice of one child, but hundreds, shrieking, crying, begging. The sound rose like smoke into the storm until thunder drowned it. The villagers fled in terror. When morning came, every child in the village was gone. Beds were empty. Cradles rocked on their own. Small shoes sat neatly by doors, never to be worn again. Parents tore through the fields and forests, screaming their children's names, but the only answers were faint echoes. That night, the voices returned. Children's laughter whispered in the dark. Little footsteps pattered along rooftops. Shadows flickered behind windows where no one lived. Mothers wept until their throats bled. The first death came soon after. The farmer's wife, the mother of the first missing girl, was found hanging in her kitchen. But her neck wasn't broken. On the walls around her were handprints smeared in blood, too small to be an adult's. Another villager drowned in the well. When they pulled her out, her fingernails were worn to the bone as though she had clawed the stone in desperation. Her eyes were gone, scooped clean from her skull. In her chest, carved into the flesh, were words, "Come play." Terror spread like fire. People tried to flee, but those who left were never seen again. Some were found later, dragged back by something into the village square. One man was nailed to the door of his own house with wooden stakes, his belly slit open, tiny bloody handprints pressed into his intestines. The survivors knew then it wasn't just ghosts. Something had claimed their children. Something had twisted them into instruments of cruelty. The elder wrote of it in his journal. Long ago, he said, the land had belonged to a cult that sacrificed children to a thing below the earth. The well wasn't a well, it was a gate. When the villagers tossed their torches into it, they disturbed the pact. The thing below had taken every child as its own. Their spirits were bound, not to rest, but to serve. One by one, the villagers died. Some were dragged, screaming, into the forest. Their bodies never recovered. Others were found in their beds, their skin peeled back to reveal muscles and veins, their faces frozen in expressions of childish joy. The elder was the last to remain. His final entry trembled with madness. They are in the walls. I hear them giggling. Little nails scratching, always scratching. I feel them pulling at me when I sleep. They want me to come play. I will not. I will not." The writing ended there, the ink smeared as though the pen had been torn from his hand. The elder's body was never found. The village rotted after that. Roofs caved in. Weeds swallowed the fields. The well gaped like an open wound. But the curse never lifted. Years later, travelers stumbled upon the ruins. They returned with wild eyes and trembling voices, telling of horrors they could not explain. One claimed he saw children skipping through the square at dusk, their bodies rotting, their heads lolling unnaturally as if their necks had been broken. Another swore he felt small teeth bite into his arm when he reached toward the well. He showed the scars, jagged and childlike. A group of explorers entered the village to prove it was nothing more than superstition. They brought lanterns and notebooks. Days later, their equipment was found smashed at the forest's edge. The journals were filled with frantic scrawls, laughter in the dark, little fingers pulling at my eyelids. They want us to smile. They want us to play. Not one of them survived. Some say if you enter the village at night, you'll hear children calling your name. If you're foolish enough to answer, you'll feel cold hands grip your legs, pulling you into the shadows. Survivors say the faces of the children are the worst part, rotting but playful, their mouths torn into endless grins, their eyes black and bottomless. The well still stands in the center, stone cracked and wet with something darker than water. They say if you lean over it at midnight, you'll see the faces of the children staring up at you, smiling. Some claim they climb out on nights when the moon is red, crawling over the stones on all fours, their bones snapping as they move. The cursed village has no name on any map. It waits in silence, its houses rotting, its fields dead. But at night, the silence breaks. Giggles echo between the ruins. Small shadows dart across the square. The air smells faintly of blood and wet earth. And if you stay too long, if you linger in the dark and listen, you will hear the voices rise from the well, hundreds of children's voices, all whispering the same thing. Come play with us, and you will never leave.